Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are on to our third session of today. Oh, how time flies. And I'm really excited and happy to see all of you here today. Now, we're going to go into a very thought-provoking panel titled Fueling Singapore's Talent Engine, Cultivating the Next Gen of Biomedtech Pioneers. So this panel is powered by the National Health Innovation Centre Singapore, also known as NHIC. And in this discussion, we will be exploring the rapidly evolving biomedtech talent landscape. We'll cover everything from defining clear career pathways and developing essential industry-ready innovation skills to fostering the crucial entrepreneurial mindset needed to bring groundbreaking medical technologies from the lab bench to the patient bedside. So to kick things off, we have a video prepared right behind for you to enjoy.
In a world grappling with unprecedented health crises, the shortcomings of conventional healthcare approaches are evident. To resolve the unmet clinical needs through transformative solutions, healthcare innovation is critical.
However, turning an innovative idea into a product that actually benefits and reaches patients is never easy. That's where NHIC comes in.
As a driver of change, we are always asking ourselves, how do we bring this idea to the patient and people to make a difference that matters?
And now I'd like to introduce to you the moderator for this panel. Please put your hands together for Dr. Krithika Kumar, Manager, Innovation and Enterprise from NHIC Singapore. And joining her on the panel would be Dr. Lee Pin Peng, Program Director for Singapore Biodesign. Dr. Matthew Heng, Scientist 2 from BioCell Innovations. Remy Chong, Partner at Elevate.vt. And we have Dr. Vanessa Ding, Deputy Director Talent from SG Innovate. Handing the time over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome all of you to the Converge stage. And we are talking about the topic on fueling Singapore's talent engine, cultivating the next-gen biomedtech pioneers. Why is this important today? Because Singapore stands at a pivotal moment in the medtech and the life sciences space. We've been ranked 4th globally as the best startup ecosystem and 5th in the Global Innovation Index. At the same time, we've also projected a 30% shortage of the talent in this space in the next decade. So this is important right now, and we have 4 thought leaders with us whose experience spans across talent development, investments, programs, and startup. So here, I'm going to talk about this segment in 4 topics, starting from the journey, because behind every program or every innovation, there's always a human story. So I'm going to start with Finn here. So perhaps you can begin to sharing about what is Singapore Biodesign, how it started, and your journey with it.
Thanks so much, Krithika. I think Singapore Biodesign, for those of you who may be unfamiliar, we are a national platform here in Singapore for health and medtech talent development. That means that we work with the entire ecosystem to reskill and upskill innovation talent for health and medtech. We've been around for about 15 years, and we are a global affiliate of the Stanford Biodesign program, which was founded about 20 years ago at Stanford. I think there are about 30 international programs across 18 countries that are looking at biodesign as a way or a framework to have a more structured and repeatable method to look at innovation in medtech. And for us at Singapore Biodesign, I think we are very fortunate to be able to tap on national level resources to really help develop programs, training offerings to help all the wonderful talent that we have here in Singapore.
Thank you, Finn. And I would like to move this to Vanessa now. What are the common misconceptions that you've encountered when people say, I want to start my journey in the biomedtech sector?
Thank you, Katika. This is Vanessa from SG Innovate. Just for those people that didn't know us, SG Innovate, we are a deep tech ecosystem builder, and we do this via two different arms, the investment arm as well as our people's arm. So I represent the people's team, and at the end of the day, I think what is important for us to recognize is that startups comes with a lot of glamour. I feel that, the glamour has overshadowed the uncertainty that is in the startup space. In SG Innovate, because we work in startup on the ground, we find that a lot of people think that startup, you have a lot of free time, you earn a lot of money. I think that's the misconception we have to debunk in the first place. Those that need to come into startup need to refigure what's your purpose in doing this job. And by doing so, it's this very time-constrained industry. You do not have a lot of freedom in that sense. The other misconception that I find, generally speaking to people on the ground, this is more towards the academics, where they feel that the minute I join industry, I will lose my academic rigor. But I think this is something that you need to think about. In a startup environment, your academic rigor or the innovation that you are doing, it needs to be equal or better than what you do in a research environment. Because whatever you do today needs to stand up to offering for the patient, offering for the user. So that's the second misconception. I think the third misconception that I find that most people don't understand is that I always need to be industry ready. You will never be industry ready. At the end of the day, the mindset needs to be agile. If you come from an academic environment or you come from a large MNC environment, how do you actually put yourself into a very agile mindset to allow yourself to transform and fit into the startup that you're working with? You're not going to have the same resources compared to where you come from. How are you going to cleverly and creatively make that happen in the startup environment?
Thanks for sharing. I think we're going to come back to the ready topic and the mindset shift later. And I will go to Remy. As an investor, can you share about a founder who has exceeded your expectation or who surprised you in his journey?
Wow, this is tough. So we are early stage deep tech venture capital fund. So we work with a lot of founders. You could say that at the earlier stages we invest in founders more than we invest in companies. And one of the key things I look out for in every founder that we invest in is what superpower do they have? Every founder has one. In fact, I would say everybody has one, whether you know it or not. And it is, to a certain extent, our job to help them discover that. Many times we help them discover that and we leverage on that, and that's what builds the culture of the company, that's what builds the team, that's what helps you form a almost cultish network of first 10 employees coming together to build the business. Now, the ones that surprise me the most is whether we have wrongly identified the superpower or they actually morph as the company grows. Those are the ones that surprises me the most. And one good example is, for example, when we invested in Mesh Bio in the very early days, Andrew, who was a CEO in his previous role, I thought he's going to be very operationally driven, and he was so visionary. He was painting such a great picture of how bioinformatics can help create a human digital twin, and with a human digital twin you can do so many things without actually opening up a human to do things. And we go, all right, that's a great vision. Post investment, as it started growing, it morphs into a COO mode again because he needs to get things done. And I go, all right, interesting. So actually he has been a CEO all along, and maybe we misidentified that. And now that they have raised a way larger round, they have scaled up, the team has grown far beyond what I think you can control the culture on. He's morphed into the systems thinker. He's building systems. He has a full-time COO on board, so he's no longer taking the COO role. And that's amazing to witness that kind of morphing. And I think that's, to a certain extent, what also drives long-term, staying power of the founder in the company.
Thanks. Andrew is around at Switch today, so if you want to find him, talk to him and ask him about his personal experience. And thanks for sharing about the adaptability. Now, coming to Matthew, you transition from academic to an industry through the immersion program. And from your experience as proudly we see you sitting here, what has been the biggest learning curve, the steepest learning curve that you encountered?
So thank you, Katika. Yeah, I think the biggest thing going from an academic sort of environment to the industry environment is really about the scalability of your product. You know, at the end of the day, yeah, when you're in the research lab, let's say in an academic setting, it's about the science, yes, but when you go into industry, the emphasis on the science shouldn't change. But at the same time, you have to be very mindful about, no matter how good it is, it's not going to be able to really impact anyone if you can't scale it to the point that it gets to the people who need it. So I think just as an example, so right now I'm working in the field of cell and gene therapy, so CAR T cells. I believe in the science. I think we have seen the data. The science clearly works very well. But then now the biggest challenge actually facing us in the field is not just the science, but again, how do we scale and bring it to the point that people who need it can really afford it?
Yeah, I think it's a transformational mindset shift as well. And what we hear from these stories is not just narratives, but then we see the human component in different roles that they've played in the ecosystem and how they've navigated that. And we continue to see how Singapore is aligning training with the industry needs, where we have the SG Skills Future, we have WSG's Place and Train program, and we also have the Talent Advancement program, the TAP, set up by Republic Polytechnic in 2025. And we've also known that the A-Star is investing about 500 million in building this infrastructure to build the infrastructure for talent, research and commercialization, putting them together. And we realized that the TIA program, that A-Star as well, where they're placing in talent like senior research scientists into the economic centers or into the industries. That's the way they're aligning them. How we are transitioning now is we are trying to move towards our theme 2, where we're trying to see that ready profile of the industry readiness is going to come in. Finn, we understand that the Singapore Biodesign is focusing on the need-centric approach. And how is that transforming these skills from researchers to innovators?
Yeah, I think we focus a lot on trying to change the mindset of some of these innovators. A lot of times we see academics working for decades on a particular technology, and there is a little bit of apprehension for them to really pivot or look at other potential solutions that might be the best way to solve a validated need. So for us, it's really important that we start from the need and we try to bring this message across through all our different training offerings and programs. The importance of constant validation along the entire innovation journey, not just through your clinician partners, but also through the VCs that you might be in conversations with, and your other industry partners, be they CDMOs or any CROs that you're working with. So constantly have that rigor and that diligence to validate. That's one of the mindset shifts. But actually beyond that, about 2-3 years ago, actually Biodesign had embarked on this extensive study, and we published a white paper specifying, or rather defining, the 8 different innovation skills and competencies according to some of the Skills Future Singapore guidelines. And I think what we had done was really to map out some of these different training offerings in the ecosystem to develop each of these individual competencies. And Singapore Biodesign isn't going to do all the training for everyone, but what we have done is really create that framework and structure so that, for example, SG Innovate or the other training partners in the ecosystem can really map out very clearly what are the different competencies, what are different levels, and for the individuals who are innovators, they can also kind of look at that list and identify for themselves a training and development roadmap. For example, if I'm a clinician, I may want to develop a little bit more of my understanding for product development, project management, and so on and so forth. And there'll be a list of competencies and the different training offerings available. So beyond just the very soft kind of things, soft skills that are also essential, we think some of these other competencies should also be clearly stated in a structured manner to really help these people on their own journey for entrepreneurship or any kind of innovation career.
Yeah, so talking about complementary, about how SG Innovate has been to the needs that you have identified, Vanessa, could you share a little bit more on the Helix program and what is a gap that Helix tackles in the ecosystem?
Thank you. I thought you were going to drop off the Helix program because you mentioned TUP, you mentioned WSG program. But this is a good place for me to plug in about our program, the Helix Immersion program. For those that don't know us, at SG Innovate, we do have a full suite of talent initiatives to help you to not only to have the ability to engage at the key opinion leader level with our events, but we do actually partner with people like Singapore Bar Design and other learning partners out there to help you to give you a framework to upskill yourself on a self-directed learning journey. Once you've done that, then you come to what we call the level 3, which is on-the-job training. Helix Immersion Program is one of those that we have offered at SG Innovate, on-the-job training targeting at Biomedtech talent. This is a 12 months on-the-job training that allows you to learn and to translate your science into technology. A lot of times when you're in the lab, and I experienced that myself, is that research never ends. There's always the next experiment to do. But to the commercial world, which is Matthew, where he comes from as part of our fellows, research needs to be able to go into excellence and deliver the product at scale. And that changes the game. That changes your mindset, that changes the way you approach how you want to look at the end game. And Helix Immersion Program does exactly that. It allows you to join a startup in your expertise, taking what you learn at academia, translate that into something tangible, using the knowledge that you have and the soft skills, because we're not just talking about hard science, we're talking about budgeting, we're talking about stakeholder management, we're talking about customer acquisition. These are things that most scientists don't get to experience. And that's where coming into a startup environment, you compress. You don't lose that scientific rigor, but you compress that learning and deliver. And that's what we do at Helix Immersion Program. The other thing that I thought was really, really important through the Helix Immersion Program is it allows one to gain what I call multilingualism. As a scientist, you're trained in one language. You're trained in science. But the minute that you have to talk to manufacturing people, you need to talk to their language, because otherwise there's just basically two people in the room talking English but not communicating. So that's the second thing that you will start to learn about all these different soft skills translating into a interdisciplinary fluency. And that's the second gap that we help to build for the ecosystem. The third gap I think we actually help to build for the ecosystem is that we find that a lot of times through the program, our talent actually gain a new way of thinking. They appreciate how they are now looking at science making a real impact, not science taking it in the next grunt. So I think that's the fulfilling angle that we hope to be able to impart into the fellows and alumni that eventually join the Helix Immersion Program.
Thanks for sharing. I wanted to go to Matthew next because we keep talking about the skill set of morphing and how you have to be multilinguist. And Matthew, I wanted to ask you, what was the hardest skill that you had to acquire during this transition?
Okay, so I think that, like what all the other speakers on the panel here have been talking about, having to change your mindset from the academic to the industry. So I think actually the most important skill or the most difficult to gain is really a lot of different skills rather than one skill. It's having to go from that always focus on my bench work, doing my experiments, even though now I'm still so-called considered to be an R&D scientist. But the expectation is that because the team is so small, so me and the other scientists in my team, all of us are always wearing many hats, and we are liaising with stakeholders, we are dealing with potential clients, we have to handle some of the manufacturing and production operations and everything. So on paper, we are still scientists, R&D department, but in truth, actually, we have to handle a lot more than just R&D. So I would say that was the biggest learning curve for me, actually.
Maybe Katika, I'd like to add on that. One thing you have to realize is that in a startup environment, it's not just the founder that makes the impact, it's actually a team sport. And I think what Matthew actually just alluded, and I think it's important for us to understand, is that working in an environment like that, it changes your mentality as well. You're no longer an individual contributor of scientific excellence, but you're actually a team player to deliver a product that makes the difference in human life.
Yeah, very well said on that, team. So now moving the same ball to Remy now, when you're talking about the team themselves, what kind of things that you look out in this team that gives you a sense of their long-term potential? Because you invest in founders, so you're going to travel with them for the next 5-10 years. So what is the thing that you see now that you envision that the skills that they carry?
Oh, there's quite a bit. So to sort of build a structure around it, I'll touch on 3 or 4 key things. Right. One is a quick one: superpower. I've talked about it earlier. The company is the grand total of the superpowers of your first 5 employees, right? And if you see it this way, then it becomes very important who the first 5 people are, right? Maybe the first 2 or 3 are the founders, and then the next 2 becomes extremely important. So that's superpower. The other one is intent. And we get this a lot when we start investing into early stage companies. Like I said, we are more investing into founders, and especially if they are coming straight out of research, the intention can be wrong, right? And many times it is about, I have an interesting piece of technology, I think the world will want it, I think I will make $5 billion out of this, and therefore let's do this. Right? That's absolutely the wrong intention, and especially the wrong intention to raise venture capital funds, because the idea isn't so much that, and if that's what drives you, then you wouldn't be thinking about how can I magically increase the number of hours I have a day to 26 so that I can work 26 hours a day. That's what a real founder thinks about. Right? So that's the second part, right? What exactly drives you? The next 2 are sort of opposites of the same coin. One is drive. What motivates you to work those 26 hours a day? Many times it's something that boils back to your childhood. Many times that's actually what creates the drive for you to do that research in that space. And many times that's why you want to see the world change, all right? And that is a great drive to have. The opposite side of that is, I call it the burden. And this is more applicable, or even more so applicable to people that VCs tend to like repeat founders, like very experienced industry people. And they come with burden, right? A repeat founder has got better scars from the last startup, whether is it the board, whether is it the customers, whether is it the first 10 employees, and that will inform how they run the next startup. I need to figure out what that is. Especially if, for example, the burden was the last group of investors were terrible people. They will see us as pure money and not really partners on the journey, on a 10-year journey. And that is a key worry for me. Someone who came from the industry with, say, 30 years of experience and network, again, VCs love that. But the flip side of that is, these people tend to come in the first day of office and ask, where's my assistant? You go, we are running on a shoestring budget with about 2 years runway, and you go, what is runway? Right? So those are the kind of things that we have to look out for. So very quickly, again, superpower, intent, the drive and the burden. If you figure these 4 things out, I think you are in a very good stage or a very good foundation for success.
Yeah, thanks. We've been talking about the ready profile, and we've kind of covered who these people are, what kind of shiftness or the readiness they need to have. Now let's talk a little bit more on the mindset alone. And Finn, coming back to you, talking about hard technical skills, we know the kind of morphism or the bilinguistic techniques that they need to master. Can we talk about how Singapore by Design is kind of aligning on the soft skill aspect and how it's kind of bridging the gap between industry readiness and the mindset and the healthcare needs?
Yeah, I think what we try to do a lot in the programs and offerings that we have is to give them something experiential. I think learning and learning by doing, together will give you a more complete experience. So beyond just the trainings at the workshops that we do, we have support in terms of small prototyping funds for people to really practice what they've learned, to really get their hands dirty and kind of de-risk that key technological risk, for example, to bridge them to the next round of funding, be it public or private. And we have a fellowship which has been around for more than a decade, where these people really immerse themselves full time in our program, so they don't have other distractions going on. They deep dive into the process and really get to live day to day as if they are really building their next company or product or solution. So I think together these experiences and the mentoring network that we bring to them, I think we try to give them a more holistic training experience. So hopefully that helps to bring all of these things together. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for touching on the mentoring part. Then that brings us nicely to Matthew's question. How has this mentors helped you along the journey in your transition, or how they've helped you make certain decisions in this career path?
Well, I think having the mentor is important for someone, like for me, still very early on in my career, coming out, not just in industry, even back as an academic in my PIs and then to now my bosses. Of course, having that mentor to learn from, especially in a startup where, a lot of the things are still, a lot of things are up in the air. You are building things from scratch, and everyone is going to make mistakes. And I think I am no different. But it's important to have that mentor who has a bit more experience to be able to at least signpost the way. Because I think at the end of the day, we all have to forge our own paths. But we are looking to them more for guidance rather than like a SOP to follow. So having that room to make mistakes and then learning how to pivot quickly to grow in our own careers, I think the mentor gives you that space basically to do that.
Oh, that's very nicely put, because that's also something HIP offers, the mentorship, because it's not your immediate boss, because you can't be telling your boss, this is a mistake I've made, but to your mentor you can clearly say, this is a mistake I've made, how can I rectify it? And that kind of really aligns to Remy now. What kind of mindset shift do you make them? Do you enable the founders make in this journey? And can you share a little bit more on the Ignite program as well?
Oh yeah, of course. Well, first question on mindset shift. Interestingly, I encourage them to admit their mistakes to their bosses. it's critical. Like in a startup, you will make mistakes, like Matthew says. Now, the worst thing that can happen is to sweep that under the carpet, to hide it, or to quickly fix it before anyone else has realized it, because that is what the incumbents would do. And that is the reason why they will move slower than you. That is the reason why they will innovate less than you. And that, frankly, is the reason why you are successful. So never ever sweep mistakes under the carpet. Never ever think that I'm going to get into trouble. Because honestly, touch my heart, right? If you're looking for job security, which is a whole reason why you don't admit to mistakes or you try to sweep mistakes under the carpet, don't join a startup. Right? So, if you're joining a startup, then again, going back to the intent, you need to think that this is for a greater purpose. And if this is for a greater purpose, then every mistake needs to be surface to the team for them the team to evaluate, to fix, and to prevent that from happening again in future. So that's one of the key things that we go through with our founders and, like I said, the first 5 employees in the team. Specific to deep tech founders, and I won't stay too long on this topic because the other panelists have touched on it, is the idea that, and I put it across extra harshly, just so it goes into the skull, nobody cares about your research. Nobody cares about your science, your technology, your papers, or your 1,000 years of experience in this research field in the market, right? And that's really because there's science, there's technology, there's product, and there's solution. 99% of the times you are stuck at somewhere between science and technology. If you get to product, great, but what the market really is asking for is solution. And to understand how to build a solution, you must first understand what the problem is. And that is where all the background and all the history and all the experience that you have in research is actually playing against you. Because you are starting from the opposite end of the sort of value chain. You're starting from science, but we need to understand the problem. Right, so that's some of the things that we do. And that dives you very nicely into the Cultivating Ignite program, which is our flagship early stage founder building program, I would say. I wouldn't even call it venture building or company building. And the whole idea is that, look, we are dealing with some of the smartest people on earth. Those are the founders that we invest in. I would be surprised if they do not understand how to write a financial statement after 6 months of training. In fact, after 6 hours of training, they probably know how to do it. Or how to do a cap table, or how to understand legal terms, so on and so forth. So all those hard skills, I have confidence that a vast majority of them will pick it up very quickly. It is about the softer aspects. It is about how do you deal with customers. It is about when if today this table were to break and there's 3 legs remaining, do you say, oh, let's buy a new table? Or do you say, let's buy the leg of the table and fix it? Or do you say, let's sell this as a 3-legged table because it's a feature, not a bug? And, academics and scientists tend to not go to the third part. And the 3-legged table might sell for 3 times more expensive than a 4-legged table just because, hey, magically it balances. And some of the greatest innovation and inventions in the world are invented by mistake. So those are some of the key changes, the mindset shift we try to inculcate into founders at the earlier stages. And that's what the Ignite program tries to do. Now, if we successfully try to morph a little bit of that thinking, of that mindset, then we actually invest. We will invest up to $100,000, $200,000 just to get started. We will put you in front of a customer and we'll say, go serve that customer. And we'll monitor that process. So you'll see, can you talk to the customer? Do you know where to sign on a POC? Do you know how to spell proof of concept? So on and so forth. And if everything checks out well, then that's when the main fund invests. And the main fund invests a far larger check size. Then to a large extent, this is me cultivating and qualifying my own pipeline. Right? And to be clear, the Ignite program doesn't charge a single cent of fees. So this is really us looking at our pipeline. In fact, we invest money into the company.
Yeah, how nice is to have a pragmatic investor among us. And moving to Vanessa now, talking about successful strategies in getting this fellow to build these strategic connections with the industry partners, and how do they transition in that space?
So before I go into that, I actually love what Rami has said, right? Because we do need a lot more ecosystem partners like Elevate. What they're doing is to put the check forward first. But you're not putting the check forward just for the technology, but for the people. If you see where technology and people comes in, the neutrality of technology is a given. That by the time it reaches people like Rami, it should work because biodesign have taught them well to think how to solution for the unmet need. But it's actually the people that changes that whole magic. That by investing in people, I think this is where I love what Elevate is doing. Going back to your question, and I think for us, the strategy is also investing in people. But we invest in a different stage of the career. We invest in people like Matthew, right? People that may not be ready to be a startup founder, but you could actually make a same impact by driving the technology forward to be the first 5, to be the first 10, because these are critical talent in the startup that make or break the technology to the next level. The other thing that I think is important is to help our fellows in the program, whether you're a current fellow or an alumni, to bring them to the space that they can network, to create the opportunity for them to elevate themselves to the industry level, for them to think alongside with the founders by giving them the stage, the space for them to collide with the mindsets of these people that are running innovation. This is something that is what is being cultured at the Helix Immersion program. The other thing I want to touch upon a little bit is that we all know that we can acquire knowledge in school through learning, through classes, but we are actually being imparted by our mentors the skills that are unspoken, the skills that actually put things together. 3-legged table that are better than 4-legged table, because there's a unique selling point in there. Do you actually learn that in school all the time? Maybe, maybe not. If you have a great lecturer like Remy, sure. But we don't necessarily get all that. Then how can we actually get that practical learning? The only way a craftsman can craft better is to learn under a mentor. And that's what the Helix Immersion program, the whole idea why we set up the program, is to facilitate that learning. And the last point I thought I wanted to build here is that you're as powerful as the network that you build. So the people that we put into our program, we make sure that they are not alone. We create different opportunities, branding, whether it's featuring our partner companies, featuring our fellows in spots like that, helps them to put themselves in a different thinking cap, help their network to appreciate what they're doing for science now today. They're no longer the same academic. I mean, Matthew's still an academic at some point, right? I think at some deep down love that he has, he still loves science. But now he's seeing how science can move forward. When he go back to school and share his learning journey, that becomes a very powerful message for people that wants to translate science into commercial business. And those are the things that we cultivate through Helix Immersion program. The last plug-in I thought I wanted to do here is that for those that don't know SG Innovate enough, please go into our website or go to our booth. We do have a booth at the far left-hand corner on the other side. I think what is important is that there are a lot of platforms for you to have self-directed learning, especially in the deep tech space. If you don't know where to start, take out your phone, Google SG Innovate, Deep Tech Central. That's the space that you need to start looking at the events, at the different courses that we work with our learning providers to put forth for you to actually take an opportunity and take the leap of faith. You may think that I only know a certain portion of science. Then spark that curiosity. Take learning into your own journey. Don't wait for anyone to give it to you. If you put your resume out there and says, no industry will want me, then my feedback to you, what have you done and invest for yourself as the people to make yourself more employable to the industry. If you've not done anything in the last 6 months, you should question yourself what you should do next.
Yeah, rightly said when Vanessa was pointing about the network that we built. I mean, just look around you. Switch has been here for 10 years now. And this is exactly the intent of Switch, is for you to go out there, meet people, network, and build your connections. And while we're also moving, we're going to have a little bit of forward thinking now. And if we reconvene at 2030, what do you look at? What do you see the future of Biomedtech talent to be in Singapore? Specifically for Finn, I would like to ask, how is the program evolving to incorporate things like AI in medtech? We have cell gene therapies or personalized medicine coming in. How is the program evolving to incorporate these aspects?
Yeah, great question. I think maybe I'll talk about two things when I look forward. The first one is that some of these technological and scientific trends, they might come, they might stick, and then they might go. I think behind that, the first principles behind how you are actually implementing these technologies and whether it actually adds value to what you're providing is critical. I think there will always be trainers and university courses which will be able to give you that deep technical skill set that you can learn for all these different up and coming technologies. For us, it's really looking at the other side of the innovation skills and competencies kind of spectrum. So that's one. I think the other one I want to talk about is, we talk about how medtech or biomedtech requires a very diverse set of talent coming from everywhere. And what I want to share today with everyone here is also that, at least for Singapore Biodesign, I think what we're going to really focus on is to groom a new community of innovators coming from the healthcare professional side of the house, and we're looking actually to push a lot on nursing innovators. We think that's a huge gap in the system now, and in the last 2 years, you've seen the formalization of the nursing innovator career path in Singapore's healthcare clusters, and that was critical in ensuring they maybe get some recognition and protected time to do innovation. And we see nurses as really the front line of patient care and really understanding and using a lot of these innovations. We want them to break their mindset of just looking at QI, PI, process improvement projects, but really they too have the right to innovate in all of the other aspects of biomedtech. And so I think we really foresee an exciting time where we see an even more diverse group of innovators coming from all the different sectors of the ecosystem, the healthcare system, coming together to deliver hopefully more disruptive and value-adding solutions to the ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks. That's a beautiful idea. In fact, we have clinician protected time for innovation now that you've opened up for nurses as well. That's the beautiful thought. How do you see, Vanessa, that Helix is evolving specific for mid-career shifters?
Actually, one of the things that we are starting to look at is how can we actually help people in the mid-career space to reinvent themselves. When I say reinvent themselves, sometimes we are stuck in our own echo chamber. So you tend to think that I can only do a certain type of science. For example, if you come from the therapeutic side, you can never understand the medtech. I don't think it's true. And that's also why we do put up a lot of training opportunities for people to then take the leap of faith. The other thing that we do, if I have a bit of forward looking, is that, again, back to Remy's idea on the Ignite program, we think that there are a lot more tech people that have the capability to then spend a little bit of time understanding how to be a venture builder or venture capitalist. Because with the skill sets that you have, that technical ability and the acumen, right, you could actually help capital to become a bit smarter. You could actually move capital with an informed decision in a more accelerated manner. And that's something that we are in the pipeline of building for the next 5 years. So watch out for the space. If we do have that coming out, it will be on the SG Innovate website. And then the last thing I think, my wish in 2030 is that I will be sitting in the audience like every one of you there, and all my fellows will be the ones sitting up here. Either they are involved in venture building or they are involved in a next unicorn startup in Singapore and talk about their journey here. I think that will end my journey quite well. Job is well done. That's how I see my next 5 years. Retirement.
That's a beautiful vision. We're not going to let you off so quickly. Remy, I want to ask you about your vision and what do you see as a complementarity in this next generation of founders?
So if I think about the uniqueness of Singapore, right, that we are a startup hub. There are many startup hubs in the world, but we're the smallest one probably. What we have that's really unique to us is the diversity of talents that the panelists have touched on. But what we often missed out is the density of talent. you don't get such diversity in such a dense area space. You tend to get medtech people in Boston, you tend to get AI people in San Fran, so on and so forth. All right, and deep tech and medtech, which is under the deep tech realm, requires that kind of diversity. You need cross-functional thinking, you need lateral thinking. We have sort of lost that a little bit in the last, I would say, 20, 30 years. But that has always been the engine that drives great inventions and great innovations. So I would love for that to take shape a lot more in Singapore. It's a bit of a crazy idea, but can we get engineers to start doing bio research? Can we get bio researchers to start looking at what the product looks like in terms of hardware, how the electricity flows from part A to part B, so on and so forth? And you might get interesting ideas on how to solve problems. And again, you can do it in Singapore because worst come to worst, everybody's 2 hours out. 90% of people will be in office in 30 minutes if you need them to, right? So I would love to see that. It's interesting to see what we can generate out of that kind of environment.
That's a beautiful vision, the interdisciplinary connect that they bring in. And Matthew, what is something that you envision, and also what is something you would tell someone out there today who are starting out on their journey?
What I would tell someone, I think the second part first, so what I would tell someone is actually just be daring. I think you have to be daring. Just take that chance and come out. So because I think like Remy mentioned, it's always about that initial team for a lot of startups, for a lot of companies trying to build innovation. It's never just about one person. So I also envision, I hope that there will be a lot of other people, other very smart, very skilled people who will also hopefully be daring, just take that chance, and then together we can build something here in Singapore.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, my panelists. And actually, just to wrap up, I want to talk about the pipeline of talent. We no longer see it sitting in isolation in research labs. They take the leap, they cross the boundaries, they move forward. And we also notice that Singapore is being the fourth best startup globally hub here, and we also noticed that the ecosystem is growing and building. Investments are flowing and the capital is scaling. So this is the right opportunity for every one of us. Go ahead, take the leap, be daring, and make the connections that you need to make and to build the next best ecosystem again. And thank you, panelists, once again, and thank you for your time, and thank you, audience, for being wonderful.